Hello, bookworms. We are taking page to film with movies based on books this week on The Verdict. I'm Jeralyn Johnson.
I'm Cameron Peña.
And I'm Marissa England. This American classic won an Academy Award for Best Writing Adapted Screenplay, as well as 3 Oscars and a Golden Globe. The story we've all known and loved, To Kill a Mockingbird, was written by Harper Lee and later adapted to film by Robert Mulligan. Starring Gregory Peck, the tale comes to life during the Great Depression. Young kids, such as lead character Jean Louise, have to learn to understand the society they live in and how it may not be as happy as they expect. As racism, poverty, and evil take over the town, they have to mature quickly. Let's take a look at the trailer for To Kill a Mockingbird.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gregory Peck.
The world never seems as fresh and wonderful, as comforting and terrifying, as good and evil, as it does when seen through the eyes of a child. For a writer to capture that feeling is remarkable. And perhaps that is why one book in the last few years has been so warmly embraced by tens of millions of people. To Kill a Mockingbird, winner of the Pulitzer Prize and just about every other award a book can win. And now, happily, To Kill a Mockingbird becomes a motion picture, and its memorable characters come vividly alive. That Scout. Some people call her Jean Louise Finch, but she insists on Scout. And that's her brother, Jim. Just a boy until the day he learns there is evil in the world. And Atticus Finch, the father, whose devotion to justice places him and his children in jeopardy. I've been appointed to defend Tom Robinson. Now that he's been charged, that's what I intend to do.
You've taken his...
You'll excuse me, Mr. Ewell.
What kind of man are you? You got children of your own?
Atticus, Jim says this watch is going to belong to him someday.
That's right.
What are you going to give me?
There's a pearl necklace. There's a ring that belonged to your mother. You want to tell us what really happened?
I got something to say. And if you ain't gonna do nothing about it, then you're just a bunch of lousy, yellow, stinking cowards!
So, did this movie kill your Mockingbird?
It killed my heart, for sure. I love this movie.
Absolutely.
The book is still one of my favorites known to man. Like, of course, they force you to read it in high school because that's what you're supposed to do, whatever. But, I mean, I'm a big avid for classics, and this is just one of my favorite classics by far. And I think it's really important, especially, like, my favorite scene, like, the most iconic scene from this, like, movie, from the book in general, was Atticus's, his opening statement and closing statement in the trial scene. I think that's probably one of the best parts, and it was the most, like, he was like hitting the nail on the hammer kind of thing, or hammer on the nail, backwards saying, whatever. He really just took it home, and then they ended up not winning the case, and that was the most crushing parts, I think, because you really thought that they had a fighting chance. You really thought that they were going to win, and then they didn't. So then you get to watch everyone lose hope in this, like, town, because, I mean, everyone was, like, really rooting for Atticus because he could make anyone like feel what he was feeling, kind of thing. So it was, oh God, I just love it so much.
I really respected Atticus. Like,
oh yeah.
Like, I'm speaking both from the book sense and the movie sense because I've seen both. I watched both in high school, and I had a little bit of a refresher this past week. But Atticus as a character is one of those people that, like, he's one of those good people that you always read about in the books. Like, he's that protagonist that you're always going to root for just because you know that he's fighting for the goodness in people. And, like, you can see that reflect in Jean Louise herself because she doesn't understand what's going on. And it's really difficult to watch that because, like, a lot of the times children are some of the wisest people that you'll ever know.
Right.
And that's one thing that you can pick up, like, as you go through life. And the fact that Jean Louise was, like, kind of stuck in a state of confusion for most of this book just kind of hurts you because you're like, we understand that you're a kid, but you are actually completely right. Like, there's no reason why it should be like this.
Right.
And like you just kind of see her character develop because it is a movie and a book based on like a 3-year process. So it just kind of breaks your heart a little.
It does, and then like with characters that you hate in the beginning, you end up loving in the end. I cannot remember the name of her for the life of me, but she was the old lady who was crabby all the time.
Oh, Miss Du Bois.
Yes, Miss Du Bois. She was so mean and hateful, and I was like, ugh, just leave them alone. Like, they're just kids. And so then they get to go spend time with her and read to her and stuff, and then you really start to feel bad for her because she's dying, and you just didn't even know it. Like, she's just dying. And when she does, like, pass, spoiler, sorry, like, it's really heartbreaking because you start to love her because she's just, like, lonely. Like, that's all it is. Like, she just wanted someone to come over. And I respected, I think it was, she, like, demanded that they come and help her around the house. And I think it was Atticus that was like, yeah, they need to. Because it's been a minute since I've read it and seen it. But he was, like, really respectful about it and stuff. And then this book is just so heartwarming because, especially, like, one of my favorite characters that doesn't talk a lot at all. I don't even remember, like, much about, like, his character, but Boo Radley was like, they really were so spooked by him, and he was just cool, and he was there, and he really, like, he helped them in the end, and like, you just feel bad because they're so scared of him, but they are so fascinated by what they don't know about him that they just keep like going over there, and then Atticus is like, stop, just leave him alone, kind of thing, and like they kept getting in trouble because of their curiosity, like literally the curiosity almost killed the cat kind of thing, and then he just ended up being such a good guy, and it's just so many good lessons in one book. I can't praise this book enough because Harper Lee is a genius with her words, and then seeing it put to life, Gregory Peck does Atticus the best justice, hands down. But then I'm also super excited about the Broadway rendition that they're doing right now. Jeff Daniels is a really underrated actor, and I think that Jeff Daniels can really pull something good out of Atticus that we were not able to see with Gregory Peck. But I mean, it'll be interesting to compare the two because I still don't think anyone can be as good as Gregory Peck as he was for Atticus, kind of thing. I mean, my family loved this book. My dad's named after Gregory Peck, so I mean, it's super interesting to see like how it is not involving, but influencing others and impacting others in this life, because it's still like put a big like hole in my heart.
Yeah, like I think just to bounce off your Harper Lee situation, like she does do a really good job at portraying characters almost as lessons that need to be learned throughout the book.
Right.
And again, like I love the character Jean Louise. Like she is such like a beautiful soul in this book. Like you've got to admit,
she's
like
wild.
Even though she's a child, like she's probably one of those children that actually looks
beyond
for her knowledge. Like she doesn't just like, okay, she doesn't take things at its face value. Atticus doesn't let her do that. And so like her character development's great because between, you know, Boo Radley, you know, Miss Du Bois, like she's learning all these valuable life lessons that she didn't think that she was gonna need.
I just love how she was so wild in the beginning. She was so like, I guess headstrong. She was very, very violent too. So it's super interesting.
Especially at the beginning of the movie, like where they were kind of like picking on Miss Du Bois, when she was like, she's like, you don't need to go talk to Miss Du Bois. Like, you can't do this. Like, and if she says anything, you just keep walking. And then Atticus is just like, good afternoon, Miss Du Bois, and like setting that example. I mean,
it's just really interesting, and it's really cool to like watch their characters develop as they grow up throughout the novel and through the book and the movie. Well, the novel, whatever, you know what I mean. The book and the movie, it's really like heartwarming to see it, but especially reading it, because you can visualize it how you want to, but when you see it put like to life in the film, it's like, wow, like you are honored by watching them grow, by watching them change, by watching them like progress educationally and everything. And not to mention the whole racism aspect of this movie is so important, because they are really like confused by it, and kids will always like be the smarter individuals, I think, with that, because I mean, you know, I feel really bad for the character like that got hurt in the end, but you know.
My favorite part of the movie, my favorite scene, you know, it's such a dark, sad movie, and so I feel bad saying my favorite part, but when the courtroom scene, and I'm going to blank, what's his name, the guy that didn't do it?
I can't remember.
That she was blamed. Well, the black man, was
Mr. Robinson.
Mr. Robinson, yeah. So when Atticus threw the glass cup and he caught it with his right hand, and then he gave it back and he threw it again, and he asked him to catch it with his left hand, and he said he couldn't catch it. You know, he gave it away right there that everybody in the courtroom knew. Like, everyone knows he didn't do it, but still sad.
Yeah.
Twilight, a book written by Stephanie Myers, was brought to the screen in 2008. This movie is a mix of drama, romance, and fantasy, starring Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, and directed by Catherine Hardwicke. If you love vampires, take a bite out of this. Let's take a look.
You're impossibly fast and strong. You gotta give me some answers.
I'd rather hear your theories.
I have considered radioactive spiders and kryptonite.
It's all superhero stuff, right? What if I'm not the hero? What if I'm the bad guy?
You know what you are. Your skin is pale white and ice cold. You don't go out into the sunlight.
Say it out loud. Say it.
Vampire.
Are you afraid?
No. This isn't real. This kind of stuff just doesn't exist.
It does in my world. So I just want to try one thing. I don't know how long I've waited for you.
What is going on?
Security guard at the mill got killed by some kind of animal.
An animal?
My family, we're different from others of our kind. You brought a snack.
What, now he's coming after me?
The hunt is his obsession. He's never gonna stop.
I'd rather die than to stay away from you.
He's got unparalleled senses, absolutely lethal.
I'll do whatever it takes to make you safe again.
You're faster than the others, but not stronger. I'm strong enough to kill you.
You are my life now.
So, the question that we've all been waiting for, Team Jacob or Edward?
Jacob by far. Like, even when I read the books, like, I've read the entire series, so I'm probably gonna like make a couple references later on just because it was a series of movies as well, but I'll try and stick as much to the first one as possible. But as much of a bookworm as I am, like, I was kind of disappointed at the Twilight movies, like,
I agree.
because if you read the books and stuff like that, like, I was even mentioning this earlier, like, it's a skeleton, really, for the way that they set up the movie. Like, I feel like the director kind of, like, picked and chose what he wanted to do, even though the author was there for all of the filming. Like, Stephanie Meyer was there.
I think she produced some of it, too.
And I was kind of upset because, like, it seemed like she almost gave up, like, her creative responsibility in it because of how, like, how lacking it was as far as the book was concerned. Because if you read the books, anybody that's read the books loves the books.
Right, right. And one thing that, like, see, to kind of bounce off what you're saying, I think Catherine Hardwicke is a very unique director. I mean, if you've seen any of her other work, like 13, she's very tuned into very, like, tween kind of movies, like, throughout, like, I don't know, kind of like what the teenage psyche is like, and how they're always wanting to, like, try new things and rebel, kind of thing. So I think she kind of tied some of that into the Twilight movie. I mean, I'm not saying that it was horrible. It's not the best adaptation. Also, when you rewatch them, you realize how cheesy they were. But I mean, at the same time, like, that was like our childhood. That was what we grew into. So I mean, it's still one of my favorite like sagas, and it's also one of my favorite book sagas as well. But I mean, the movies didn't really do the books justice, I feel like, and I'm Team Jakeward, by the way. Team Jakeward.
Okay, I love that. Yes.
I made that word, trademarked it, whatever. Edward is very romantic, but he's also creepy. But like, if you could take that romantic sense of nature and put it onto Jacob's hot body, yes, there you have the perfect man right there. Another thing that I like, Stephen Chbosky wrote Perks of Being a Wallflower, and he directed his own film. So he chose what he wanted to leave out and stuff, and that's something I would have liked to have seen. Because I think that directors of their own, like I don't know, the authors of their own books directing their own films is more impressive to me because it's like they know what they have in their head. They can visualize it because they wrote it, so they know what they're doing. So it would have been really cool to see her be more in tune with it, because I know that the movies later on got better. Like, for sure, they got better, but Twilight, just there was so much left out.
For sure. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm Team Edward.
Oh my God, we're like literally in the middle. This is crazy.
But I just want to say, Catherine Hardwicke, I think that these actors were beautifully picked. I don't think that, you know, you have some movies where it's like, oh, I wish they would have used a different actor, but this movie, no. I think that Bella Swan, Kristen Stewart, she's already kind of awkward, and I just think it fit her character perfectly. Yes, Edward was creepy, but he kind of looks creepy in real life too. But hot, I guess. But just like the romance connection between those two was just amazing. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to.
Like it's supposed to be tense, but it's almost too tense. Because like. You see like actors on screen that have really good on-screen chemistry. Like you have people like Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone that work perfectly together in movies, or like Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper. They work beautifully together in movies. Like there are some people that just have that on-screen connection. I don't think Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart did have that on-screen connection. When they kissed, it looked painful.
Even if they were dating in real life.
Even if they were dating, it looked painful. Wow. They looked like it was forced. Like it was just so much tension. It wasn't like good tension either.
I have to disagree. I think their lips matched perfectly together, especially this first time. Well, the first time when they kiss each other, when they're, you know, the bedroom scene where she sneaks in through her window and she wakes up and she's like, well, is that the, yeah.
I think it was a dream.
Yeah, and then, I don't know, how he had to like stop himself because he couldn't control himself. It's like, romantic.
I think part of my issue with Twilight, as much as it was, is I'm one of those people that, like, as soon as it becomes mainstream, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Because
like The Walking Dead, done.
Like that's with multiple TV shows. Like one of my favorite TV shows in the world. Like I had to wait until like it died down for me to actually start enjoying it again, because like if I enjoy it, I want it to be my own opinions.
Right.
But like with Twilight, it was one of those like.
It became
the
so
way
big.
that they selected those scenes in that movie, like the way that Stephenie Meyer and the director decided to pick them out, like it made Edward look like such a stalker.
Yeah. But it was almost like you revisited, but like
in the books, like it's not like that. Like, and I think it was like in the books, like he'd even come over and studied with her before. Like he was in the house prior to that, but like in the books, it's like, oh, he just appears in her bedroom.
Yeah, like that's just normal. She's like, oh, you're here, okay.
Like the movie made him seem so much more creepier than he actually was. Like there was no reason for him to be like that.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I like Jacob's character so much, because at the end of the day, like if you read the books and all that, like Jacob got screwed over so bad.
But then again, he's like that one type that you just friend zone and you're like, I wish I could love him, but I don't, kind of thing. And he's just there, like he's a good guy, he's a good friend.
Not everybody wants a good guy though.
We're not gonna
get into dating right now.
Yeah, we're not gonna get into that. But I think that he was also creepy too, because he was like, I'll fight for you until your heart stops beating. And I was like, that's kind of creepy, man. Yeah, like chill out.
Space.
Anyway, on to my favorite. In the 2016 filmed adaptation of Paula Hawkins' best-selling mystery novel is by far the best book-to-movie adaptation I have ever seen in my life. The wonderful Emily Blunt plays the miserable character named Rachel, and we struggle through the movie and book with her developed drinking problem. Rachel is not over her divorce with Tom, played by Justin Theroux, and he has a hard time coping with his new marriage with his old mistress named Anna. And she does questionable things around their home, and she frames herself in this psychosomatic way that makes her hard to believe when a girl in town goes missing in a terribly cold case. The question you need to ask yourself throughout this film is, who can you trust? Here is a glimpse into the shockingly amazing adaptation of The Girl on the Train.
A teacher once told me I was the mistress of self-reinvention. It's like having a secret. And nobody but me knows I'm doing it.
I saw her. I saw her from the train.
She was with this man. Just for a second.
Is this her? Can you tell me where you were Friday night?
I was in the city, and then I went to visit my husband.
You mean your ex-husband? It's my understanding that the woman who has gone missing was his nanny.
Rachel, I need you to stay away.
So what did you do during those hours that night?
I don't remember. There's some time missing. What happened that night in the tunnel? Tell me the truth.
You were seen in the area that night. Did you murder Megan Hipwell?
No. I'm not the girl I used to be.
Why are you here?
Because I'm afraid of myself.
Rachel is a sad and lonely character who doesn't seem to know what is reality anymore. When Megan, played by Haleigh Bennett, goes missing, she becomes obsessed with this woman's life, befriending her husband Scott, played by Luke Evans, and even seeing the same therapist as her. It becomes horribly suspicious. With slight differences from the book to movie, I frankly felt the same way about every moment in the book and the movie. How did you guys feel?
I am so fresh on this movie. Like, I finished watching it this morning, and I do have to say, like, I haven't read the book, but if it's anything like you've been been excited to talk about, it seems like they did the casting super, super well.
They really did.
Like, her performance, well, the girl who played Rachel, I already forgot her name, sorry. Emily Blunt, like, she did such a good job portraying that consistent, like, alcoholism, I'm always sad, I'm kind of losing what I'm doing. Like, she did such an amazing job, but I will say this movie messed me up.
Imagine reading it though.
It was so much to take in at one time, but like, I loved it. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I don't watch horror films, but I loved this one.
See, that's the thing about it, is like, it takes me forever to read books, like forever, like I was just saying. It takes me forever, like it takes me a long time. And I picked this book up in school and I was trying to struggle to read it like a couple times, and I was like, oh, whatever, I don't really have time. It took me 2 days to read it because it was that good. Like, I had to find out who this person was, why did they, like, what happened. So Megan, the character, spoiler, Megan got killed, and you want to find out who the killer is in this cold case, and you are going to guess every single person that you encounter in this movie and book, because you're like, who is it? I want to know. And so it's too obvious for it to be Rachel, the main character, but they make you like question it. You're like, is it really her? Like, you really think it is her, especially in the trailer, because she has this moment where she's like, I'm afraid, and she's crying, and the therapist is like, well, what are you afraid of? And she was like, I'm afraid of myself, because she gets so drunk, and she struggles with her mental self, like, throughout the entire film, and she really, like, she wakes up one day and, like, covered in blood, and she can't explain it. She has these blackouts and doesn't know what happens in between it. So it's really hard to watch, because you're like, I don't know who it is, I don't know who to trust, because you don't. They all put on such great performances, and I could not have asked for a better ensemble, honestly. So yeah. What did you think about it, Cameron?
Well, I think that I feel really bad for Rachel, especially towards the end of the movie, because she finds out that it was her husband that did it. So that part sucked a lot. I think the whole mental health thing, because of the husband, was just terrible.
I mean, they really portrayed it in a really good way, though. I really think, because her husband Tom, he was a narcissist. Like, he made people believe things, and he blamed it for them. Like, he was like, you made me do this. And he did such a good job of being a narcissist. And if you have anyone, if you have ever met a narcissist in your life, you know exactly, like immediately when you meet this character, you're like, that's exactly who I think of, like immediately.
Well, the director did a really good job of doing the character development throughout this movie.
Right.
Like, when I first saw it, I'm not even gonna lie, I'm like 2 hours, wow, like, why is it so long? But then, like, you go and watch it, like, they spent so much time developing all of these characters and making sure that every one of them had a good story to tell, go along with the book and stuff like that. Like, with Tom, like, it starts out like, oh, they're happy in the beginning, like, she's just the girl on the train, like, she just goes to work. But then, like, as you get farther, you realize, like, oh, she has an alcohol problem, and then she was mentally and physically abused by her husband Tom. And so, like, at the towards the end of the movie, like, it comes to the point where, like, oh crap, he was doing this, because he's like, so in a way, you killed her. Like, he was trying to manipulate her. And then, like, you start realizing towards the end of the movie, when she's having all these flashbacks, she's like, oh my gosh, that was him. Like, he's just, like, in my blackoutedness, I guess is for lack of a better term, like, he completely convinced her that she did these things, like, especially the scene where she's talking to Martha.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, I wanted to apologize about the plate and all that, and she's like, you didn't do that. You didn't feel good, so you slept in my room.
Which, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little thrown off that it was Lisa Kudrow. Like, I was like, they could have found someone else, but I mean, at the same time, I think she did it well. Like, I really was like, okay with it.
I'm so used to her being Phoebe, like, it's not even
so funny. It's hard to take her seriously in this moment, because you're like,
because you're so used to her being like that weird, like, it's kind of one of those things, like, with most of these movies, like, they're always going to be that person.
Then,
like, Gregory Peck is always going to be associated with Atticus Finch.
Right.
Like, Kristen Bell and Robert Pattinson are always going to be, and Taylor Lautner are also, they're all going to be Kristen, Edward, and Jacob. Like, that's always going to be their thing. Because this is, like, I don't want to say they're teen movies, because The Girl on the Train was obviously rated R, but, like, those roles are going to stick with them. Like, I'm not going to be able to unsee this.
No, I know. It's one of the best performances I've ever seen from Emily Blunt herself in general. And she's still making a huge name for herself, especially working with her husband as well. And I just thought there were a couple of characters that were a little misplaced. Like, I can't remember her name, but she's from that 70s show. I didn't think she fit that character at all.
She did Orange is the New Black too.
Yeah, I didn't think she fit that character at all, but I was like, whatever, I looked past it. They changed minute details, like they changed the location. It was originally set in London, but they changed it to New York, which I was like, whatever, that's fine. And then little things, like she used to drink canned gin and tonic, but they don't have canned gin and tonic in the US, so they had to change that. So she drank vodka out of a water bottle, which I thought that was a nice touch, because I was like, it makes her really like hardcore as an alcoholic person, like, because she doesn't stop at all through the movie. If you've noticed, like, she does not quit, and it just really ties it all in. So like little things like that. And then there was a part that was really intense between Rachel and Scott, which was her Megan's husband. So there was a part that I thought it was really good that they left it out, because it would have made it way too intense. So you thought it was intense then, just wait until you read that part, because reading it, I was like, holy cow, what is going to happen? Is he going to kill her?
So this is one question I will ask. There's one scene, like, he's standing on the lawn as soon as her and, what is her name? Rachel and Anna.
Yeah.
They're both getting arrested.
Right.
So he's standing on the lawn. At that point, like, because we don't see him past that point. So, like, does he feel sorry for her? Does he understand the situation? Like,
I don't think he does. He's a narcissist. He does all of this for himself.
Scott's the same way as Tom, then.
Oh, well, okay. Well,
Scott, sorry.
Sorry, I thought you meant Tom.
My bad.
Scott, I think he doesn't really know. I don't know. I think he probably does feel bad, because he didn't believe her at all. He didn't believe Rachel at all.
Well, even though this movie messed me up, we might have some shows that might mess with your brain just a little bit. Next week, we've got sci-fi. We're going to be doing Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Avatar, and Ex Machina. So make sure you tune in for that, and we'll see y'all next week.